Sorry, what's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again for another preview stream for you guys as Spurs have a massive game on the weekend against Everton at home. We need to avoid getting Dyched. If we can get those magical 3 points leading up to Christmas, then we actually go 3 points behind Arsenal in first place, who take on Liverpool later that day. So it doesn't get much bigger. I am here with the great Brian Daigle from Tottenham on Tour, who's filling in for Ben. Some of you definitely did guess it yesterday in the comments, but I did become an uncle for the first time yesterday. Ben had a beautiful baby boy, his wife Ashley giving birth yesterday morning, so everyone send their best wishes to Ben and his wife on the birth of their son. Beautiful news. I could not be happier and prouder, and I'm absolutely delighted with that news. And so you're not going to be seeing Ben in the near future, but Spurs never stop. So Brian Daigle, big up to you for filling in as always, mate. How are you doing?
Well, first of all, mazel tov, Uncle Simeon, and mazel tov to all of your family and Ashley's family on the arrival of their child. Congratulations to Ashley and Ben and everyone associated with the families. Wonderful news. Spurs do continue, and it's a huge game, isn't it? It's a huge game.
Yeah, it's massive, and maybe in seasons past, or even maybe if you asked me near the beginning of the season, going into this game, Everton at home, which we do have a pretty good record at home to Everton, you would have thought this game is a game which you'd be very confident about. You really think we can take the game to Everton, but Sean Dyche and Everton, especially in recent weeks, have really turned up the form books. I think he's won 6. Everton have won 6 of their last 8 Premier League games. Obviously, they're off the back of these Premier League points deductions, 10-point deductions they got now a couple months ago. It seems to have really galvanised this Everton team and Sean Dyche. I think it's like the perfect storm in a weird way, in terms of the way they play and having this us versus them mentality. You see it on screen now. In their last 5 games, they won 4 of them. Obviously, crashed out of the Carabao Cup in midweek, but only on penalties, and they're 1 more penalty away from winning. But look at that away form. That away form is astonishing for a team near the bottom of the league. 4 wins on the trot. I think if you take their away form for the whole season as well, they're about 5th in the league. And look at the goals conceded. That's the big thing.
Yeah. 1
goal conceded in their last 5. They're off the back of 4 consecutive clean sheets as well, at the time of speaking. Well, but obviously before the Carabao Cup game in midweek. But in the Premier League, it's 4 consecutive clean sheets. Spurs, on the other hand, obviously definitely back to winning ways last couple games, but obviously we had a bit of inconsistent results, I would say. Performances are still pretty strong. But this ain't going to be an easy game, is it? Especially with a lot now riding on this game, considering we actually really put ourselves in and amongst it if we do get a win, don't we? So looking at, I don't know how much you've seen of Everton, Brian, but in recent weeks, tell me what you've what you think of their recent performances.
So first of all, you got to say a huge. I think Sean Dyche personally is a very, very underrated manager and associated with playing one kind of brand of football. But if you look at the teams he's been at, Watford, Burnley, and now financially struggling Everton, he's had to deal with what he's got. I think he's a lot better than what they give credit for. And you know what? Fair play to Everton after getting their points deduction. Tackling it this way, it could have hit them harder. They could have had they really could have been drawn into it, but they've responded. And like you said, those goals conceded is astonishing. I do get to watch quite a bit of Everton. Luckily, over here we get all the games anyway, so we get to see every single game. So I have seen him. He has a plan. You just got to look at. We were watching at the Scotland Yard in between before the West Ham game, and at half time there. Demolishing of Newcastle, and they played Newcastle off the park. Forget if they were tired, Newcastle, or injuries. Everton was superb, and Dwight McNeil is a real handful at times, and I think Everton have responded to the points deduction. It couldn't get much better, could you? 4 wins out of 4 and not conceding in the league. they're going to be a tough challenge. But on a positive note for us, how you started that, if you said to any Spurs fan, including myself, before Christmas, if we win this game, we'll be 3 points behind the leaders, bearing in mind they're playing later, I think every single Spurs fan would say, what are you talking about? And would bite your hand off for it. So we're in a very, very good position as well.
Yeah, and it means there's a lot riding on it, and if we can somehow get those 3 points, with Liverpool and Arsenal playing later, which means we're definitely gaining points on one of those teams. If we get 3 points, it'll be absolutely massive. But it's going to be so tough, especially obviously with our suspensions, Udogie, Basuma being out as well. That's going to make it even more difficult in terms of who play at left back. But looking at Everton, without that points deduction, they'll be sitting on 26 points and above Chelsea in 10th right now. Probably in the conversation for Europe, they'll be 2 points behind Man United. Only 3 points behind Newcastle, which, considering what a decent season Newcastle have had, would be very, very surprising. I mentioned we have a fairly good record against Everton. We are, if you look at the head-to-head in the last 5, we are unbeaten in 5, but actually we've only won 2 of them. Been a few draws. Obviously, we beat them 5-0. That was under Conte. I remember fairly, March 22. Last season, we beat them at Tottenham Stadium. Then we had that embarrassing 1-1 draw, if you remember, at the back end of last season when we were 1-0 up. Everton were down to 10 men. And we couldn't hang on even against 10 men. I remember Lucas Moura gets himself sent off. We ended up drawing the game 1-1. But obviously, it's going to be probably a different prospect facing this Everton team than it has been in recent seasons. Is this the best Everton have been since maybe post-Moyes, do you reckon?
I think so. I mean, form-wise, I think it's a lot longer. You have to go back, but they got 4 wins back-to-back. And that was with, like we said, they have been very financially challenged the last couple of years. It is going to be an extremely tough game. As you said, I think I'm more interested to know what Dyche's record as a manager is against us, not just Everton's. But this is going to be, if someone had said this game before the deduction, I would have said quite an easy 3 points. At Spurs, I would have strongly favoured us. I still do favour us, but I think this game is going to be a lot tougher than we thought it would be, because we all know what a bit of form and confidence can do to a team. And I don't think there's a team feeling more confident than Everton right now, back on the back of the results.
Yeah, and I kind of agree. Obviously, we're going into this favourites, even though Everton are in great form. Spurs will be favourites going into this game, but you can't look past how Everton play. 4 clean sheets in a row, and as well, the last time we played a team who play in a similar vein to Everton, West Ham, you could argue, have a similar style of play, and we kind of we lost to them at home, and we ended up probably struggling to create the chances we should have created, and we ended up shooting ourselves in the foot. So obviously nothing can be taken for granted here going into this game at home to Everton. I really am. I honestly, if you told me we're not going to end up getting 3 points and we're probably going to not win, I wouldn't even be surprised. I don't think it would be a shock result if Spurs failed to beat Everton on Saturday, which is testament to what Sean Dyche is, how he's playing. Looking at their team here, which we're probably predicting they're going to play, a bit of a 4-3-3, very tough in the middle. Onana, Idrissa Gueye, Ghana, very aggressive midfield, which they like to adopt. Obviously, that back line has kept 4 consecutive clean sheets in a row, which is really impressive. Mikalenko has been a massive surprise this season with his performances at left back. Pickford has been making some brilliant saves. And then going forward, I don't think they've been that impressive going forward, but one player I do want to highlight who's been really great in recent weeks is Dwight McNeil out on the left. He's like an old school left winger. I would even say he's like a modern day Stuart Downing, how I would describe someone like Dwight McNeil.
That's not like a bad comparison.
Not like the paciest player, but one who is decent at taking people on. He's got a sweet left foot who's got a good strike on him, a good cross on him, takes a lot of set pieces as well. That's kind of the player I would compare him to, and maybe he's taken him a while to really find his form at Everton, But recent weeks, I think he's really starting to contribute regularly going forward, and he's got a few goals and getting a regular assist now. So what have you made of him in recent weeks?
Well, with him, what I will say with him is he's kind of giving me vibes of what Damari Gray was doing for the last couple of years. There was that one player that they looked to for the inspiration, for that bit of magic, for that 90th minute, or that killer shot to get the point. And Dwight McNeil is most certainly that in the attacking wise. I think when he started coming through at Burnley, I think I even came on this channel and said I wouldn't mind signing him. Obviously, that was at the beginning when he first started breaking through. I think he's a great player. I really do. But you look at Everton now, when we're talking just now about is this the strongest? I think it's the most together we've seen with Everton. There's always been a chink in the armour. You look at it. You mentioned that defence. I am a massive fan of Branthwaite. I honestly think that kid is one of the brightest defenders England will bring through in recent history. I think he's that good. They've looked great. Like I said, their midfield, you know what you're going to get. Decore, I believe, is out, isn't he? So
that's going to be a massive miss for Everton.
Massive. But Onana and Gay are fantastic midfielders in their own right. This is you look for a weakness right now, and as a unit, they're very, very hard to find in Everton right now.
Yeah, and they're all very strong, very aggressive players, and I think they've really bought into what Dyched is trying to do there. I did have my doubts about at the beginning of the season. Obviously, I think they lost their first 3 games of the season, and I was looking at it thinking, Everton, they're a big club and they're a good club, and are they really gonna kind of buy into playing this kind of football on a regular basis, especially if they're struggling for results as well? And are these players really going to buy into it? And you have to 100% buy into it if it's going to work. Like it was at Burnley, everyone was completely behind Sean Dyche at that moment. So I did doubt it, but I think in recent weeks, especially, I think, to be fair, their away form has been good all season, but obviously at home as well, they're starting to pick up results as well. And I think if you think about just logically, like how they play, like what really helps them in terms of how they set up, obviously very resolute, very well organised, very aggressive, which I think is the main thing, really good from set pieces. But it's all about having that aggression and that intensity in their play and like fighting for every ball, that kind of thing. That's what really makes this Sean Dyche team tick. And then you add into that the whole points tally deduction and how they feel a bit maybe there's something unjust going on, and they've really it's maybe brought them closer together in a way that they really need to fight for every result. In a weird way, I think it benefits them in terms of their form, how the way things have conspired, and I think it benefits the way they play, the kind of mentality this points deduction has given them, if you know what I mean. So I'm not saying they're lucky to get it, obviously, because look, 10 points is a massive deduction. But I'm just saying, in a weird way, I feel like getting that points deduction and the mentality that's given them has benefited the way Sean Dyche likes to set up his teams.
Well, one thing I will add to that, I mean, I think you're bang on the money, but also what I think will add to Everton is they probably analysed this as a team and thought, you know what, if we were going to get a deduction in any season, this season would probably be the best, because the 3 promoted teams, I don't think have been as poor as they have been this season. Luton have started to put a bit of form and may get out of it, but out of the recent history, there's been 1 or 2 teams that are not even in the relegation debate right now. You've got to think it's Spurs them on and said, right, let's show them how it's done and really pull together and make this a non-entity. And I don't think anyone, even Everton fans, would have thought not forget 4 wins back to back, but 4 clean sheets.
Yeah,
as you said, you go back to that graphic you put up first. Only conceding 1 in the last 5 is outstanding for Manchester City, let alone Everton Football Club or Tottenham. It's an outstanding achievement. So they're definitely all together and singing off the same hymn sheet and wanting to work as a team, aren't they? You can see it in the results.
Yeah, and the clean sheets they've been getting as well. Obviously, clean sheets against anyone is impressive, but these have not been easy games. Forest away 1-0, Everton at home. Newcastle at home 3-0, Chelsea at home 2-0, and then Burnley away 2-0 as well. So not the easiest games at all. To keep these clean sheets that they've been keeping, which makes it even more impressive. Albeit the game before Forest, they did lose 3-0 at home to Man United. So definitely not to say that they're some sort of unpenetrable force, because clearly they can definitely be got at in the right situations. And I think if Tottenham, can play at the level that we've seen them play this season, there is a possibility that if Everton come into this game, looking to be resolute and, not trying to ride the storm early on, they could be blown away early doors and find themselves, 2-0 down in the first half an hour, and all of a sudden they got a mountain to climb. But if we do kind of allow Everton to settle in the game, like we did with West Ham, we had that bit of a blitz early on, and then we kind of allowed them to settle in the game. We allowed them to get a foothold in the game. We only scored the one goal, and all of a sudden things changed, and they grew into the game. We made a mistake, makes it 1-1, make another mistake, makes it 2-1, end up losing the game. So I think Everton will be probably looking at that blueprint and thinking that's probably the best way to go about challenging this Spurs team. But for you, do you see them kind of sitting back, kind of soaking up pressure and looking to hit us on the counter? Or do you think, with the form they're in, clean sheets, maybe they'll come to Spurs Stadium and have a bit of a go?
I'm a bit torn with this one, Sim. I think they may start like West Ham for the first 10-15 minutes, try and ride the storm, because if we do what we did with Newcastle, potentially we could rip them apart. Like we could have done West Ham, but we weren't clinical enough to take our chances. I think they might try and sit back to weather the storm at the beginning, and then as the game gradually goes on, they might be more expansive, not like Newcastle, but go more attacking. But you've got to think with their form as well, they just want to stay as is. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They've got a game plan. You talk about I know it's away, but you look at those home games, Chelsea and Newcastle. They are tough fixtures for any team, and they disposed of them quite easily. Away, you would think with the atmosphere that we're generating at the moment at White Hart Lane and the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, whatever you want to call it, will be too much. Everton will bring the noise as well, but I think we've just got to make sure we're clinical. And I will say one thing: Jordan Pickford seems to. Sorry, Tim, just quickly. I was about to say Jordan Pickford seems to make save after save after save against us, and really, as always with goalkeepers. And he's in a good bit of form as well. 4 clean sheets have got to be giving him all the confidence in the world. So the question about how I think they're going to play, I think it's going to be a combination of how Newcastle and West Ham played.
Just with a bit more confidence. But looking at the last few games, actually, we've had, probably all the way going back to the Wolves game. Even the Wolves game, actually, you could probably say. But probably every game, or probably even before the Palace game. I'm just going for our fixtures, and I'm just thinking about how those games have gone. And in pretty much every game, we've had a quick start to these games, which was actually a bit of like in the beginning of the season. I think it was a bit of a different problem. I remember we were complaining where we wouldn't start that quick, and then second half would come on strong. I remember at the beginning of the season. But if you look about, our last, this is I think 7 fixtures in the Premier League. Chelsea, we went 1-0 up, nearly 2-0 up very early before letting the opposition back in the game. Wolves, we went up in the first couple minutes. Aston Villa, we had that plethora of chances in the first 20 minutes and we didn't take them. Man City, we went 1-0 up in the first 15 minutes. Yep. West Ham, again, loads of chances early on and went 1-0 up in the first 20 minutes. Newcastle, 2-0 up in the first 25 minutes, I think it was, or half an hour. And Nottingham Forest, we had a bit of a quick start to that game. We had a couple of chances early on before, obviously, Forest came back into it, and we can see it. We only scored on the stroke of half time. But that's probably the exception in terms of, even then I would say we did create a lot of chances. So the last 7 games, we definitely have form for starting quickly and creating chances. We don't always take the chances, but obviously we've gone 1-0 up in our last 8 games as well. In fact, we've gone 1-0 up in every game apart from 2 games this season, which is the 2 games were Brentford away and Arsenal away. Are the only 2 games this season that we haven't taken the lead. Which is actually quite astonishing to think about. But that's going to be very important tomorrow because, especially with Everton's clean sheet record, if we can immediately get a goal and, just make sure that you break their resolve early on, that could definitely go a long way to kind of breaking that resistance they've had over the last 5 games. Because the longer the game goes on and they don't concede, they're going to gain more confidence off the back of the 5-4 clean sheets in a row. And that's always very important for a team, just having that confidence that, look, we're not going to concede today. We have this feeling before. So if we can take the lead and really take them to the sword early on, I really think that goes a long way to getting the result in this game.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. There's not much more I can add to that. I mean, the Forest game, I think I see it slightly differently. The Forest, we didn't start quickly, or we were starting brightly, and then Johnson got his injury, and we had to adapt to that. And then the rest of that first half was quite dull, in my opinion. And we got the goal right at the end of the first half with Richarlison. That's what we've got to make sure we don't do. I believe, from what I heard, and obviously you'll go into it shortly, we may have a clean bill of health from Forest. Like, everyone should be available that was there. And I think Brennan Johnson has been since being on the right, has been much more improved. And I think we've got to use our pace. We do have a lot of pace when he's there, and Porro's passing range, and we have to capitalise. And I think they're going to be vital.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I just think that Everton, they're going to want to come in and dig deep and frustrate us. So if we can get an early goal, they haven't shown a capability recently of coming back from behind. They might be, I'm sure they're capable of it, but I'm just saying recently their wins have been from clean sheets. So if we take the lead early, I'll definitely ask different questions of this this very resolute Everton team. So it's going to be very interesting. And of course, going into this game, needing those 3 points to put pressure on the top 2 really does add that extra element as well. Albeit Villa could go top if they win later tonight against Sheffield United. So that also, but it really just keeps this title race so wide open if Spurs get the victory, which makes it even more crucial going into the game on Saturday. Brian, then, look, based on everything we've said, actually, no. Before we get into match predictions, let's just talk about a few quotes Ange has had to say in his presser. He had some interesting stuff to say. Talking about Sean Dyche and Everton, he said, I think, saying in there about their recent form, he said, I think even if you take away the 10-point deduction, they'd be in a fairly good position in the league. I think they've been one of the most consistent sides all year. Sean has done an outstanding job, but when you get hit with something like that, it's often a measure of the playing group and the manager, how they respond to adversity. And you've got to say the response has been first class. And also Sean Dyche said Ange is his kind of guy, he said, Sean Dyche. So it just seems like 2 people who definitely get on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I will say as well, I think Sean Dyche is one of the funniest managers you'll find. I remember him doing an interview with Tubes on Sky Sports, and it's just hysterical. They're just laughing the whole way through. He seems like a really, really down-to-earth guy, Sean Dyche. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I think he is wildly underrated for the style of play and what he's achieved. But you look at the teams he's been at Watford, at Burnley, who he led to their longest stint in the Premier League. And now he's gone to Everton, which is a massive club. Let's not forget how big Everton Football Club is. But they are under, their hands are tied in many ways at the moment. I think he could do a wonderful job there. He cannot be underestimated. And great comments from Ange, saying exactly as it is. And like I said, it looks like 2 managers that do thoroughly respect each other. Wouldn't mind being going out for dinner with a pair of them. That would be a good laugh.
I'm sure that would definitely be something brilliant to be at. He was also asked about our discipline issues of late. Lots of red cards, red yellow cards, and whether it's a problem He said he was asked whether he feels the need to address the discipline with the squad. He said, no, not really. Obviously, it's something that is not great for us as it is costing us during games. It is costing us post games. Players are well aware of the kind of impact that these things have, and I'm sure they'll learn from their experience, from those experiences. My experience in football is that the best remedy for those kind of things is a player missing out. If they feel they are missing out on something, then it brings them into line pretty quickly. Hopefully, we keep winning games, and the guys who miss out learn their lesson that way. So what do you make of those comments from Ange? Do you think there's an underlying kind of, not anger, but disappointment in some of the stupid cards we have been picking up, and he's saying, these players need to learn their lesson? Or, what do you make of those comments?
So first of all, I think a lot of that is towards Yves Bissouma. In all honesty, I think because obviously that's a guy where he's 4 of our red cards, 2 of them have been his. He's going to have to learn his lesson. This is the thing. I mean, one thing I will say is, talking of the discipline, I watched the panel show that you did with Stel and Ashmatic, and the fan show that Stel did his bit saying about Romero and how the world are targeting him and the tackles that have gone on since Romero's tackle and getting away with it. I still fail to see how Destiny Udogi's yellow card is a yellow card against Forest. I honestly, you look at, like we said, people have gone back to the Wolves West Ham game and seen that elbow. Mm-hmm. I don't understand where we are with this. So a lot of this is bad officiating. But Spurs do need to learn their lesson. And, not need to learn their lesson, but they need to learn when to foul, when not to foul, picking up a yellow card. And we still got, you look at it, Sim, we've still got a couple of players that, if they pick up 1 or 2 yellow cards before Christmas, they're on a suspension as well. And we got 3 games before it goes up to 10. So we have got to be careful. We have got to be careful. It is a concern, isn't it? I mean, Destiny's huge miss tomorrow. And especially with midfield, we can't risk any other midfielders being out with yellow cards. And I think Kulusevski's 1 or 2 away. There's another one midfield. Højbjerg, I think, is 1 away. We've got to be very, very careful at this time of year. And yeah, we need to learn discipline.
And I think as well, the frustrating thing for me is they seem to be constantly unnecessary challenges. It's not like they're, sometimes you can kind of, if a player takes on for the team and, the opposition are about to get a chance, we're 2-0 up, you just want to, see out the game, get a clean sheet, and he takes on for the team with a yellow or red, then I can kind of, you can look past that, and I don't think it's like a massive issue. But I think all the red cards we've had have been really... Okay, maybe not Udogi's against Chelsea because, maybe they were getting a good chance there. But Romero's one against Chelsea, completely unnecessary. Bissouma's red card against Luton, completely unnecessary. And then his red card against Forest was completely unnecessary and just a stupid challenge. So that's my frustration, is that we seem to, be playing well in games, then we just shoot ourselves in the foot with something completely brainless. Essentially, and I think that's maybe what Ange would probably be frustrated with. Not necessarily that it's the amount of cards we get; it's just how we're getting these cards is ridiculous in a way. And especially, like, imagine you're Ange and your team's in control, doing well, 1-0 up, you're winning a game, and then constantly someone's just doing something to try and undermine the result all the time, whether it be a mistake on the pitch, like giving away a goal, which has happened against like West Ham, or be it a stupid card like has happened against Luton and Forest and Chelsea.
Yeah. Well, what you got to also remember, Stephen, I remember, and I loved this part with Jose Mourinho. You were probably at the game. Do you remember that game where we beat Wolves 2-1 and Jan Vertonghen scored a last-minute header and we won that? And he says even in the documentary, he kept changing the person at left back so they could keep picking up yellow cards on Traore to stop him, because he couldn't risk. Obviously, if you get 1 yellow card against him, you know what's going to happen. There's been that's genius from Jose, and that's moving the players around to avoid those kind of things. But like you said, we are picking up the most needless yellow cards. Bissouma's one against Luton is just ridiculous. The Forest one ain't far short of it, but yeah, we've got to learn where and when to make these. If someone's going clean through 1-on-1 and you put him down, you're taking one for the team. But you can't say every single game, every single booking, you're taking one of the team. But they know what they've got to do, and they've got to learn to be clever or be more on point with their tackling, haven't they?
Absolutely. So I do think that must be a bit of a frustration for Ange, but hopefully that second half of the season is something we can put behind us. He was speaking about transfers as well. Angie said, I don't really, on whether they'll be busy in January, he said, I don't really know. It's one of those things in January. It's a fairly tricky month in terms of club business, but we've got guys in the background working on it. And once the window opens, we'll see if we can make an impact. So he's been talking about, potential transfers. And one other thing I want to touch on is you talk about Ollie Skip. Asked if Skip can play the number 6 position. He said most of the time he's been coming on in games, we've needed some energy further up the park, and that's the role he has been fulfilling. But he can play the 6, and he probably will play there. We have 3 games over the next week, so he'll probably get an opportunity at some point in that position. And with Biss being away pretty much until the end of Jan, I'm sure we will use him in that space. So do you think skipping the 6, maybe, that could bring a better level of performance from him?
So first thing first, this is just me thinking out loud. I think with him being used more than Pierre, this is goodbye Pierre in January. In all honesty, if that's what he's going to do and keep playing him, I will say that I would rather Højbjerg came on against Forest when he came on. But in the second half, he did a great job, Ollie Skip. I think there's a real player in him. It's just, is he an Ange type player to play regularly? He's now going to get his chance. Ollie Skip under Conte before he got injured was superb. I think he is going to get game time. We'll have to wait and see if he can play the 6. But he's going to get given his chance now, isn't he? And I don't know how you feel about him, but using him more than Højbjerg is just saying one thing to me.
It was interesting, wasn't it, on Friday night against Forest that Skip came on before Højbjerg, which hasn't been the case for a lot of the season. So it'll be interesting to see what that team selection looks like on Saturday, who he picks in that number 6 position in place of Basuma, because I do think that'll be very telling. But look, Brian, having said all that on tomorrow's game, what is your score prediction going into the game?
So one more thing I'll add about the Højbjerg Skip thing is if you look at it, it could also be a masterstroke from Postecoglou, because in my opinion, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg has been brilliant when he comes off the bench and seeing the game out, and maybe he's thinking to himself, do you know what, you're better for me and you have more influence and a better impact in the game from the bench, so that's why I'm who knows, but for the result, I'm going for a very hard-fought 3-1 win. I think it'll be 1-1 for quite a while, and then nearer the end of the game, we'll overpower them and get 2 late goals.
In my prediction, in my Premier League predictions, I said 2-0 Spurs. I just got a feeling that Everton are going to want to play in a similar fashion to how they have done, and it's got them results, but I do feel like the way Spurs play, we're going to really put the pressure on early. And if we can break that resolve early on, I think Everton are going to struggle to, unless they stay in the game, they're going to struggle to really get back in the game, I feel, in this one. But if Everton do take the lead, I feel like we will struggle a lot, to be honest. So I think the first goal is absolutely crucial in this game.
Yep.
I think Spurs have got that first goal in every game this season, bar 2 games. So I'm going to bank on them to get it again, and I'm going to bank on them to go on to win the game. So I've gone for 2-0. Brian's gone for 3-1. Let us know in the comment section below what all your score predictions are. But without further ado, we are going to get into the predicted lineup for Saturday's game. Before we go into the lineup, let's get into the state of play in terms of the team news. Ange confirmed at his press conference that in good news, Brennan Johnson and Giovanni Lo Celso are both back and available for selection. Obviously, Brennan Johnson went off against Forest with a gash on his head, but he is back. And Lo Celso also missed that game last week due to injury, but he is trained this week and he is going to be available for selection. Obviously, added to the list are Yves Bissouma and Destiny Udogie, who are both suspended for this game. Obviously, Bissouma not going to be seen until the end of January, but Destiny Udogie is only out for one game, so that's in good news. And he was speaking about Maddison and Van der Ven in his press conference. He said that, asked if they're going to be back early January or later in the month, he said hard to say. They're both in rehab. Neither of them are anywhere near training with the first team at the moment. If you look at the timelines, Mickey and Madders did it in pretty much the same game. Mickey might just be ahead of schedule in terms of Madders. Both will be back kind of in January, and Bentancur family is fairly similar. It's not about trying to not give out information. These things kind of accelerate or get delayed when you get to the final phase. Until then, until I see them out with us, it's hard for me to say when they'll be back. So look, thankfully, Van der Ven, Maddison, Bentancur all progressing well. Sessegnon, he also said, is at least 2 weeks away from returning to training, but he said could be more as well. So he still said he's a while off, Ryan Sessegnon. And obviously Manos Solomon and Perisic are also long-term absentees going into the weekend, so they'll definitely not be available. But that is state of play. And it doesn't get any better once we get into January as well with AFCON and Asia Cup. So we'll have to wait and see what the state of play is going into that month. Hopefully we can get a bit of a surprise with Van der Ven and Maddison. But without further ado, we get into the lineup. In goal, obviously, we're going to go with Guillermo Vicario, our number one, being one of the highest performing goalkeepers this season in the Premier League. But one thing I've noticed with me and Ben have in the last 5 player ratings, we keep saying he had a good game, but hasn't had too much to do. It does seem to be a bit of a games where we've lost against West Ham, Aston Villa, even some of these games we've lost, but he hasn't been overly worked in a lot of these games, which I think, especially since Romero's come back, has definitely been the case. So definitely signs of maybe we're conceding less chances recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can add the Wolves game into that as well, couldn't you, Simeon? Literally had nothing to do. One of the things I love about him is with a goalkeeper, obviously needs who may have games like that where he's not tested, is to be ready at the vital time, and you just need to look at that Forest save. That Forest save is world class. So this guy is just magnificent. I pound for me for value the signing of the window. Not just for this club, but for the Premier League, if not one of the best signings in Europe for value. And yeah, there are games he hasn't been tested, and then there's games like Chelsea where he's just peppered non-stop. I don't think he's put a bad performance in. I don't think he's put a solitary bad performance in, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon.
Absolutely. And so Vicario goes in goal. Right back, we're going to obviously stick with Mr. Consistent Pedro Porro, who pretty much this season, since he's the side, has been absolutely fantastic. One of the most consistent right backs in the Premier League, let alone just for Spurs in recent months. And he's really just putting in performance after performance that has been astonishing. And I think his quality on the ball, I mean, I know that we know he's great when it comes in his offensive play, but I just don't know if he still now gets the credit he deserves in terms of how great he is at build-up play, finding those clever passes when we're building up from the back, and he just has such great quality, doesn't he?
Oh, mate, listen, for me, the most improved player at the club is coming up to his 1-year anniversary. Obviously, came last January. Statistically, the best right back in the league, statistically at the moment, and defender. And then you add his passing range and his attacking ability. I was one that only wanted to see him as a forward last season. I thought he was horrific in defence, but again, so happy to be able to say I was proven wrong. This man is just incredible. He is my player of the season so far. I think he's magnificent, and definitely there's only one choice to go at right back.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, centre-back, we're going to go for Cuti Romero, who has been really great, I feel, since he's come back into the team. He's doing a really great job. I really think our defence has actually really toughened up a bit since he's come back into the side. Was it the West Ham game did he come back in? And since that West Ham game, our defence has been a lot tighter. We've conceded less goals, and I just feel like the chances we're conceding are a lot less as well. And I think Romero, with his proactive style of defending, has really gone a long way to helping that.
Yeah, I have to say as well. Simeon, you were obviously at the game. I spoke to Ben and Barnaby on the fan show. I think Romero was magnificent against Nottingham Forest. And you know what? When he's being quiet, no one really talks about him. But the timing of his tackles, his distribution, his composure of the back four was there all to see against Forest. That's the Romero. Obviously, if he puts in a wild tackle or a great tackle with force, we're all like, "Hey, Romero, yeah, well done. There he is." When he's quiet, people don't really notice what he's doing. I thought he was outstanding against Notts Forest, and seems to have found a very good partner in Van der Ven's absence, hasn't he?
Absolutely. Talking about his partner, obviously we're going to be starting Ben Davies at centre back. Obviously, there's an argument maybe to push Davies to left back with Udogie out, and maybe put someone else in at centre back like a Phillips or a Dye or maybe even an Emerson. But Davis as centre back just because I feel like he's playing so well there at the moment. I don't think Ange is going to want to kind of break up that partnership. So I agree with you. I think Davis has been exceptional past few weeks. I thought he was close to man of the match on Friday night against Forest as well with that performance, and I think he's adapted to the centre-back role better than anyone could have expected, so fair play to him. With Udogie being out and Davis technically being our backup left back, is there a temptation for you to put him back on the left?
Yeah, did you know what? Again, I spoke about this with Simeon, with Ben and Barnaby on the fan show. You look at it, and can Emerson play the introverted left back? People will say he did it very well against Palace, but then say he did it hideously against Wolves. It's a real tough one, I think. But do you know what? Ben Davies, I think, deserves a huge, colossal amount of credit. He's one of the players that obviously get tarnished with he's not good enough, he's not where we need. And to some extent, he might not be what we need first team wise, but whenever he comes in, he'll do a job. We played him at left back to begin with, left centre back of a 3. Now he's playing the centre back of a 2. And next to Romero, he's looked great. He's looked great. Don't get me wrong, as soon as Van der Ven's fit, bang in you go, he's gone. I'm torn between is splitting that partnership with him and Romero so vital, or is it more important to get Ben Davies being that introverted left back? Because if you look at it against Newcastle, when they get the times at Forest, Ben Davies is having a lot of time with the ball and running forward with it, and that's from centre back. So I'd rather see him at centre back, but I think Emerson and Davies could possibly change throughout the game. But I would start Davies in the centre.
Okay, I agree. I think there's so much kind of shifting already with Van der Ven out and Udogie out. Like, we've got something solid in Romero and Davis. I just wouldn't want to split that up for the sake of just having him at left back. So left back, we have gone for Emerson Royale on the left. Obviously, as you say, against Palace, did all right there in that position. I remember when he came on against Chelsea, he played there for a bit as well, did okay.
Yep.
But he did play there against Wolves and was atrocious. So hopefully he's going to have to learn from that, or maybe it just can be a case he can play a bit more of a defensive role on the left and give Porro a bit more license to get further up the pitch potentially. Maybe that's the way we've got to see it, but definitely needs to up his game here if we're going to be as effective in possession as we can be. So need a better performance from Emerson at left back on the weekend.
Yeah, we definitely do. But also we've got to remember again, this is Emerson playing out of position. Because of the state of the squad and the strength in depth being depleted, he's having to play there by default. Thing that worries with him being there, if you look at it, Crystal Palace play differently to Wolves, and I think Wolves will play more. Everton might try and play a bit more like Wolves, and then if they do, maybe he will struggle. But like you said, he came on against Chelsea. Not to take away, there's games where he has come on and done that role very, very well. So hopefully, I mean, I can't remember. Dwight McNeil will be on Porro's side, won't he? For majority. Yeah. So that's one huge concern out of the way with how Dwight McNeil has been playing. But yeah, he's there by default, and yeah, he's definitely got to put in a performance better than the last couple.
All right, next up, in the 6th position to replace Yves Bissouma on the weekend, we are going for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. I actually did this lineup before I saw those quotes from Ange on Skip, but I still think even with those quotes from about Skip, he's saying he will get his chance to play in that number 6 position. I do think, by and large, whenever he has got, Højbjerg has been his go-to in that number 6 position. So I'm going to stick with Højbjerg in this one, but just what he's saying on Skippy, maybe there's a chance he could be the one to come in and play that role, which would be interesting. But to be fair to Højbjerg, I do think when he's played in the 6, we started there against Fulham at home. I remember had a really good game. Palace away played there for a bit, had a really good game. But I remember the Wolves game as well. He also played in that position and wasn't great. So I'm confident if he starts, he can put in a good performance. But he's just, obviously Bentancur and Basuma offer different things than him in that position.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to see Højbjerg. I really would, but I've got a feeling they'll be Skip. I do, but I want to see Højbjerg because I think Højbjerg offers more. And obviously, what he will give you is that steel that Everton have got. We need a bit of steel in there, and he will be able to match Everton's midfield with that. And like I said, he has had some good games where he started. I think he's been more impactful from the bench. But yeah, if I had my choice, I would pick Pierre. But I've got a funny feeling he's going to choose Skippy, especially after those comments.
To be fair for Skip, we haven't seen him in the number 6 in the Spurs shirt yet under Ange. So maybe that could be a position that could see get the best out of him. Because I just think in the number 8 position, you need to be a bit better on the ball, like offensively, like a bit more creative. Like when you get in those attacking positions, you need to be a bit more decisive. And that's not Skip. But when Skip has, when he's in the centre, has time and space to spray passes around, can play some line-breaking passes, I do think that's definitely more his game. So I'll be interested to see how he does perform there if it is Ollie Skip. Next up on the right, number 8 position, we are going for Pape Matar Sarr. Obviously, he came back into the team against Newcastle, and we've seen the difference he makes to the team. So he's going to be absolutely crucial to have back in, especially with Everton's, tough midfield and Andre Onana and Idrissa Gueye, who cover so much ground. I think having someone like Sarr, who's got the engine he has, is so important.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Simeon, Sarr is one of the first names in the team sheet right now. I absolutely love this guy. I think we've all had this talk about when he was out, or when Basuma was out, does he need Basuma? I think it's been the other way around. I think Basuma has needed Sarr. I think Pape Matar Sarr is an unsung hero of this season. I think he's an incredible talent that hopefully will be getting a new contract very, very shortly. And for me, definitely the first midfielder on the team sheet for this game.
Yeah, I think it's to be absolutely crucial. Next to him, we are keeping Dejan Kulusevski in the kind of number 10 role, or kind of left number 8 role in this team. We are sticking with him in the centre. And Ange had some interesting quotes about Kulusevski in his press conference, asked about if we have seen the best of Kulusevski yet in a Spurs shirt. And he said, I hope not. I think there's more to come from Dyched. He's still fairly young age-wise as well. I've been really pleased with him because he's played a number of positions for us. One of the reasons we're getting through this period is guys who've been filling in different roles, whether it's him or Davis or Emerson, guys who have been played in different positions at different times, irrespective of position. Dyched has made a real impact for us throughout the whole season, whether that be out wide, or in the centre. I really like him playing inside. It gives us another dimension in terms of our attacking threat. And I agree with that because I do think Dyched is good out wide. I do think he can do a good job there. But when he's in the centre, I just feel like it opens up more possibilities for him in terms of like options he can play the ball to when it comes to shooting angles, passing angles. Also, it gets him on the edge of the area a lot more, little flicks, little through balls as well, which out wide, obviously, we can see how good he is with the crossing, which he did against Forest. He's got a great delivery. But what I love about him when he's in the centre is those little touch through balls, like against Villa and West Ham, where he's playing people in on goal and in those kind of positions. So, and we're going to stick with him in the centre. Obviously, Lo Celso is back for this game as well, so there is a possibility he could play. But what have you made of Dyched in the centre and Ange's comments there?
Well, Simon, as you remember, when I was in the studio with you at the start of the season and we did watch-alongs together, I was quite critical of Kulusevski, but only for what he was doing on the right, and mainly because of his output as in his assists and goal contributions, not his work rate, not his application, and just him being so predictable when being out there. And it's because of a different way of style we're playing with Ange, and Ange may have asked him to do something different. But I have loved seeing him in the centre. I think, like you said, he kind of hovers around the pitch, doesn't he? You do see him going to the right, but it's kind of like a free roll he's got where he's kind of picking pockets and finding space. And like I said, these little intricate through balls and passes and flick, I think he's having a huge impact on games there. And I think this is where we've got to try and keep him. I think he's been so effective. And I think having Gio injured again, as he was, has just highlighted how good he can be in this position. I much prefer him here to on the right wing, and long may it continue we see him there, because I think he will have a big impact.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think with his skill set as well, I just think centrally, well, from what I'm seeing from him in the centre, like his upper body strength, he doesn't have to rely on his pace as well to get away from people. You can rely on his strength and trickery to do that, which he does which he does a good job on the right hand side. And I think another consequence of having him in the centre is it gets the best out of the next guy we're going to talk about, and that is Brennan Johnson on the right-hand side. Yeah. And I think that's probably the best consequence of having Dyched in the centre, is it allows Johnson to be in his more favoured side. He just looks so much more confident and comfortable on that side when he takes people on, and I think when he's on that side, he kind of scares the life out of fullbacks, whereas when he's on the other side and he's cutting inside, he's a bit more easier to deal with. And I think when he's running in behind, getting to the byline, getting pullbacks in, staying wide, it just makes Johnson a lot more dangerous. He looks a lot happier and more comfortable there. Obviously, we're going for Johnson on the right, but what have you thought of his recent performances on that side?
So, for me, what I will say is it's amazing. Richarlison coming into form and being put in the centre has allowed Son to go back out on the left and be as clinical, and the form. It's allowed Kulusevski to come inside, and most importantly, Brennan Johnson to go on the side we bought him to play on, or where he was so good for Forest. There are a lot of people where Brennan Johnson still is kind of splitting opinions on his performances or his price fee. And I've simply been saying, if you look at it, he came on the last day of the window, so he didn't have Ange pre-season. He didn't get to Ange's fitness levels, didn't know Ange's style of play. Then he started, then he had an injury. Then he's playing on the left, and now he's playing on the right. I think against Newcastle, he was great. I really do. I thought, apart from not being able to score, he needs to work a little bit on his decision-making and final ball. But with Porro on the right as well, I think that right side terrifies anyone. And I think it's brilliant that we see Brennan Johnson there. We know how much pace he's got to burn. He's also worked on his tracking back, which is one of the things that people were worried about. I think seeing him, like you said, seeing Kulusevski there brings the best out in Kulusevski, but also lets Johnson do what he does on the right. And I think seeing him back there, he's going to have a big say on tomorrow's game.
Yeah, and it's almost a bit like a breath of fresh air seeing a right winger on the right again. You know, it feels like it's been years since wingers used to do that. Get to the byline, just take people on, have a go. It reminds me like a bit of old school Aaron Lennon, how he used to play that role. And yeah, it's really nice to see. On the up front, we're going to stick with Rishi in the number 9 position. Obviously, 3 goals in 2 games, coming up against his old club as well this weekend in Everton. So a big more reason for him to get up for this game. I've been really happy with Rishi past couple of games. I think he's looked a lot better, looked a lot freer in his movement. His goals have been well taken as well. So I'm excited if he can carry on his good form.
I'm with you. I mean, Sim, you brainwashed me, remember, into to the Richarlison signing, and I'm so happy for him. So happy to see him finally at least getting a run where he wants to play. He seems like, injury-wise, he seems clear of it. Hopefully, and we spoke yesterday about Jan Vertonghen and mental health, hopefully what he's going through or went through, he's got the help and either is still getting assistance with that or has finished and is in a better place. Now's his time, isn't it? Now's his time. We know that Sonny will be gone in January, so having him have this run and getting the goals. The big question is if he does score, do we see a pigeon dance? Or is he going to honour the Everton fans? Because obviously there's been a lot of noise about this transfer and the cost and how Everton have been hard done by in this transfer with the 20 million more they wanted. So we'll see if we see a pigeon dance, but I do think we're going to see a Richarlison goal.
I agree. But yeah, I got a feeling he won't celebrate. He probably has a lot of respect for Everton, but we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But I'm excited. Hopefully he's got this momentum now and he can go on a bit of a scoring run and really show the real Richarlison, which we haven't seen at Spurs since he's signed. And on the left, we are going for obviously Heung-min Son on the wing. Had a brilliant game off the left, I felt, against Newcastle. Maybe less involved against Forest, albeit early on he had a couple of chances, didn't he, which he probably should have done better with. So you could probably argue drifted in and out of the game on that left-hand side. I still believe, even though he had that great game against Newcastle, I still think his future is up front rather than off the left. But I do think with Richarlison in the form he's in, I think he's look, Son has 10 Premier League goals this season, so I don't think you can take anything away from him on that front. But for now, I think Richarlison, especially against teams like Everton and Forest, who's sitting deep and you know restrict you from space, I think that's the best way Son's going to find spaces out wide, and I think having a presence in the box is more important with Richarlison. So I'm going to stick with that for now.
Yeah, I mean, with me, with Heung-min Son, I think he tore Trippier apart, didn't he? He was not having the best of form at the moment in Newcastle, but I'm not saying that because Trippier was so bad. I think Son was just so up for it and just literally took him on early, knew he had the beating of him. And if we can get Son early on the ball and he can have the beating of his man on the left, I think he could have another field day. And one thing I will say, this is one of his most favourite teams to score against, is one of his most favourite teams to turn it on against. And I don't see any different. I must be, I've been critical of Son on the left. I have been in the past. But that performance he put against Newcastle was magnificent. And you look at it, and it was a breath of fresh air. And obviously, it's because when you put a left foot on the left, a right foot on the right, have creativity with Kulu, and then you got a goal scorer scoring, it all fit, didn't it? It wasn't you're playing there because you're forced to, because this one's out. Everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone had their game plan, and they done it to a T. And I think the same happens again tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So let's run through that predicted line again one more time for you. We've got Vicario in goal, Porro, Romero, Davis and Emerson along the back line, Højbjerg, Sarr and Kulusevski in the midfield with Johnson, Son and Richarlison. So that is your predicted lineup for the game against Everton on the weekend. But yeah, I think that's it for today's preview stream. Big up to everyone for joining us in the chat. Appreciate Brian Daigle as always for your time on today's stream. I'm going to put your channel in the comment section right now, but let the people know, if they don't know already, where they can find you.
Yeah, they can find me and the crew on Tottenham on Tour. Daily morning show at 9 a.m. UK time, Cockerel Doodle Doo. We've been doing the advent calendar, and after every match day, me and Johnny do Andrew Management, a review of the game in our own unique and special way. And there is lots of new content to come in 2024. We're going up a level. So come over to Tottenham on Tour and join the family.
Well, there you go. If you go into the live chat, everyone, right now, Tottenham on Tour is currently, the link to his channel is currently in the chat. So go over to Brian's channel, go onto Tottenham on Tour and give it a massive subscribe and show him some love. Always appreciate your time, Brian. The clips of the Today's show will be out later, and just press conference is currently live. There will be an embargoed section at 10:30, and a Tottenham update will be going out a bit later today as well. So stay tuned for all the more content. You got the watch along on the weekend with Barnaby hosting. Barnaby hosting with Marlon, I believe. I will be at the ground getting all the footage there. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us on today's stream. Appreciate all you guys' support, all the comments. I'll see you all very, very soon. Let's hope for 3 points and a Merry Christmas to everyone going for Monday. But like, subscribe and comment, and as always, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.